Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. Today, I have a very special guest with us on here, and I'm going to bring him on in a minute. But Michael Lee Hill, we're doing part 2 of an episode we already did. So if you want to go back and catch the kind of background behind that, make sure you go check that one out. So this is my second show in the new studio. This is my first one doing a live stream thing. So I have to kind of remember to look up at the camera. So I'm going to do that as much as I can. But until I have a monitor, just bear with me when I'm like looking down to see my guests. I got to remember to look up here at you guys. So like the show's kind of coming together. There's still some things I need to get. I want to get a little control panel going here. But the operation is coming together and it's really fun. So make sure before I start the show, I just want to let you all know I have 2 spears left on shamanspears.com and all, which is, by the way, handcrafted energy channeling devices. If you don't know what those are, make sure you go check those out. And everything with that goes towards funding my show and getting it going. So now I'm going to bring my guest on here. I'm really excited for this episode. We're going to be talking about orbs and 432's frequency. Michael, it's good to see you.
Good to see you again. Here we are again.
So
you are in your spaceship.
I'm in a spaceship now. Yeah, it's a lot different, and I'm digging it. And this is actually my first time doing an interview with someone. I did one show on Tuesday, my first show here, and it was with the person, the kind of partner that I'm doing this whole project with. He's going to have his own show here. So I interviewed him like in person here. So this is actually my first time doing a show like, streaming with someone. So it's interesting.
Very
Digging
cool.
it. I'm going to get the control panel together and make a few more things I need to get. But I think it's coming together and it's really exciting. Definitely.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I know, most people probably already saw our last episode together, but if there's anyone in here that wasn't able to see the last show, can you give like a brief like bio of who you are and, what you did, the whole History Channel thing and all that fun stuff?
Well, actually, I'm so excited about doing this show today because this is where it all began. I live very close to Lake Erie. In the past, and I started seeing these orbs of light out over the lake. So I began to find places to go and film them, and some of my footage went viral. My YouTube page, Michael Lee Hill, if you want to check any of it out, it's over 5 million views now, and some of the footage went viral, and that brought the History Channel to my door. And so season 1, episode Alien Contact, is the episode that actually at first I only had 5 minutes in it. It was a show on Skywatchers, but they uncovered a weird anomaly, and that was that me and another contactee, his name was Terrell Copeland, had an unknown blood anomaly. And so that's where that was revealed to me, which led to meeting the Anunnaki. And them saying, this is in 2008, by the way, and them saying, in your past, we were known as the Anunnaki. And that just opened up a whole other path of learning. But I'm so excited today because in 2011, I was contacted by Bigelow Aerospace, and they're the Pentagon secret UFO program. They funded Bigelow Aerospace $22 million. And that was to hire detectives to go out and find people that were in contact with this intelligence behind the orbs of light. So I was contacted by them saying, we know you're in contact with the real thing because we have been studying it over the Skinwalker Ranch, which at that time Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace owned. So I ended up having a friendship with the investigator. His name was Gary Hernandez. So I learned a lot about these orbs of light because he even said, these are the real deal. And he guided me to some information from the UK Ministry of Defense and Hastalin. So I got all of that to share. So it's fun. Like I told you beforehand, with the History Channel, that led to meeting the Anunnaki and them explaining to me, the History Channel, that show that, the blood anomaly, they said, was an indicator that you are of our hybrid bloodline, once known as the Anunnaki. So that was a whole nother course of study. But at the exact same time, I didn't know the Anunnaki was in technology transfer programs with the NSA, and specifically it was the remote viewers and reverse engineering division of the NSA. So they pulled me into their fold and ended up getting a course of study. But what I want to tell you is we can get into this as well. I learned a lot about these orbs of light from the inner sanctum of the NSA remote viewers group. So that brings us up to where we are now.
Amazing. I just realized my charger isn't plugged in, so 1 second, I'm gonna get up and
no worries.
Be right back.
Hey, while you're doing that, I'll play my singing bowl. I'll start it off with some good 432. Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the charger here, but I'm just gonna hope this lasts the whole show. I got 20% left, so I think it should be okay, hopefully. But yeah, so I'm really interested in what you had to say about the orbs here. I've had my own experience, and I definitely want to hear what you learned about them. And I'm really
What was your experience?
Should I tell mine first, or maybe I should tell mine first, and then you can tell yours?
Yeah.
Okay, so my experience is actually probably the craziest UFO experience I've ever had, and it was like the one of the first ones that I really had that I can really remember. But once I had this experience, I kind of realized when I went back that I had several other experiences with it. But in like different forms. But this was the only time it really came physically to me that I can remember. And when this happened, it was actually about 7 years ago. I was in the desert, and it was actually a little before contacting the desert. It was like a few days before the event, and I was just out there. It's my first time ever going, which is kind of ironic, that it was like I had this experience right before a UFO conference, but it was like, it happened. And it was like I was out in the desert, and this glowing lime green ball of light that was about like this big, like probably the size of a beach ball or a basketball, just came down from the sky and hovered like I think like 20 feet ahead of me, like over this tree. And it was really weird because it just came down and then it stopped like eye level with me. And I was talking to some people, but they were facing me, so their backs were to it. And I was facing it, and I swear it was like the energy with it. It was like it came down and because it stopped right eye level with me, and it was like I could just feel from it that it wanted me to see it, and it was like it came there for me. Like it was like a sort of like interaction, and it was like this like ball of light. It was like lime green, and
how big was it?
It was about the size of a basketball or a beach ball. It was far away, so it's hard to tell, but I would say it was probably around that size. And when it came there, like it just like it was like I wanted to say something because like at the time there was actually a meteor shower going on. So I started seeing it come down, and I was about to be like, hey guys, look, like, a meteor. And then it starts going all the way down closer, and then it just stops. And I was
This is
just
a meteor.
shocked. I didn't even say anything. I was about to be like, hey. And then I was like, whoa. And they actually saw me do that. They're like, what? But like by the time they turned around, it just kind of shot, it like stopped, it hovered, and then it shot forward and disappeared. And I was just like, it's weird when you see things like that, because it's like such a like strange thing to see. It's like, did I really just see that? Like, it almost feels like you imagined it after it happens, because your consciousness doesn't know how to like take it in, you know. It's like, I just saw this orb of light come down, and I know I just saw that, I know that just happened, so what was that? And after I got back home, this was in Joshua Tree, so after I got back home after the event, I was doing all the research I could to find it and figure out what it was. And I started looking up orbs in Joshua Tree, and actually it was saying that the Hopi Native Americans, they saw the orbs all the time in Joshua Tree for like, you know, like since like ancient times, and they called them nature spirits. And they said that, and then it was saying like the different colors represented like different things. So I was like, oh wow, okay, so this is actually a thing there. I didn't know that before going. So I was like, okay, I don't feel crazy now. And I'm like, okay, I guess, you know, because I was like almost wondering if my mind like made it up or something in a way. I'm like, I mean, but I'm, you know, I definitely saw it. It was definitely there. And
How long was it there?
It hovered for like 30 seconds, and then it just shot forward, or well, probably a shorter amount of time than that. But it just kind of came
like
down.
Forever.
Yeah, it did. And then I realized after I started thinking about it, I'm like, I had other experiences with this lime green light in the past, and one of them was, the first experience I had with it was when I was younger. I was probably, I think it was when I was in high school, maybe right after. And at the time I was in this room at my parents' house in the basement, and I had a sleep paralysis experience where, in this dream, I was dreaming, and in the dream, it was like an old misty forest, and it was like really creepy. And there was this old lady that just starts like walking up to me, or well, at first it's like a dark misty forest. I'm like leaning against this rotten log, and then this like creepy, well, okay, so I just started seeing this like light coming out of the darkness. It was this lime green ball of light, but as it got closer, it was like this hunched over like old lady, like a crone, you know, and she was holding a lantern, and in the lantern was the lime green light. And she starts like kind of like, she's like hunchbacked and like, you know, walking forward with the lantern like this. And she comes right up to me and like touched me in the center of the forehead. And she said something, and I don't know what she said to me, but it just kind of sent like a shock through me. And I woke up, and I knew I was back in my body. I knew I was awake, but I could not move my fingers or open my eyelids or anything, like no matter how hard I tried. And I was like, oh my, like, you know, I'm like freaking out, because I'd never heard of sleep paralysis before. I didn't know what was going on with me. I was like, oh my God, what is it? Like, I was like, you know, I'm like trying so hard to just move my fingers or open my eyelids, and I could not for like 2 minutes. And as soon as I was able to, I just took off running upstairs. I was like freaking out. And so that was the first experience. And then the second experience was my first plant medicine experience. During this trip I like left my body. It was really interesting. I was actually listening to a Modest Mouse album, and I'd never heard Modest Mouse before, and the lyrics like changed. It was the Moon in Antarctica album, and the lyrics changed, and it was like the voice of God, and he was like talking to me, telling me how like civilizations rose and fell, and just explaining everything to me. And it was a really incredible experience. And I left my body, like I wasn't there, and I was like on this other side of the universe, and there was this lime green tree of life, and it showed how everyone interconnected. But I realized it was that same like bright lime green, like plasma kind of light color. So those are all my experiences with that. And then, so right after, I realized after having this final experience, that's actually with my shaman spears. I started painting crop circles on the shaman spears, and I just started. I don't know. It was like I was getting all the images in my head, and I just started painting them, and I was like looking up more online, and then I started doing looking at documentaries on crop circles because I'm like, why am I thinking about this so much right now? So, and I wanted to know more about them, so I started watching all these documentaries, and in the documentaries, they're saying. It was showing that a lot of people in like England have actually recorded these balls of light coming down and forming the crop circles in the fields. So I'm like, is that what I saw that day in the desert? And did it give me some sort of download? So yeah, that's my whole experience.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that first of all, I think you've realized this, that some people can't see them. You know, you can be right next to someone else and you'll say, hey, there's a freaking ball of light right in front of us. They're like, what are you talking about? It's almost like they'll let you see them if you're ready to see them. And it's almost like some people are chosen to see them. And I don't know what that's about. But, you know, let me ask you, how is this 1 hour, this interview?
Yeah, it should be about an hour.
Okay.
Can go a little over if needed.
I just have some info for you, and you can take it for whatever it's worth. I don't even know if it's true, but I heard when you experience sleep paralysis and you meet the old woman, that they're actually the keepers, the guardians of the Akashic records, and somehow you've found your way to the Akashic records, even in your dream vision state.
No way.
And pretty much they say that these guardians, most humans aren't ready to be there. So they don't have a very nice demeanor about them. They're like really much like, what are you doing here? You know, and it's not very pleasant sometimes, but you can take that for whatever it's worth. So
did she like keep me from like continuing to get there, or
perhaps, you know, they're definitely they meet you and they're checking you out and to say, and they're not going to be real cordial about it. They're like, what are you doing here? And
that's really wild. I don't know what she said to me. I mean, I know it was like a telepathic thing, whatever happened, but because I don't think she spoke, like I like felt it in my mind, you know, and she just kind of like leaned over with the light, and then she tapped the center of my forehead, and
third eye, right?
Yeah,
that's where it all happens. I'd be willing to bet, man, if you found your way to the Akash, it won't be the last time. And just, you know, if you meet her again, just look her in the eye and say, uh-oh.
Might not have been the first time either. I might have had some past life experience with that. I've been reading that. I don't know if you know who Joan Grant is, but I've been reading her works. Do you know who that is? Joan Grant?
No, it's not ringing a bell.
She's she died about 20 years ago, but she was this writer who she was able to recollect a lot of her past lives, and it was just because in a lot of her past lives she was a priestess of Anubis in Egypt, so she you know, was trained to like be able to recall stuff from like her dream state and bring it back to reality when she had this position. She actually had a few different lives like that in Egypt. So I think that's why it was so easy for her to, so she wrote entire books of her entire lives, and they were like really amazing. And so it's just definitely been something that's been on my mind a lot lately. It's very interesting.
I'll tell you what, I'm beginning to understand that water holds the Akashic records. You know, when you look into Dr. Emoto, you know, like we were saying, that water has memory and it's responding to human thought forms. It records everyone's thought forms that ever come in contact with it. And Dr. Emoto proved this. So water, you know, it's not anything what we've been told it was. It's alive and it has memory. Take care of it.
I heard something really interesting about water recently. I've been some friends of mine do a lot with Falun Gong, this like Chinese energy practice, and I've been kind of learning a lot about it the last year or so. And the person who kind of started Falun Gong, he had this talk where he like went into water, and he was saying that humans don't really understand how water is. Like right now, like our scientists don't really have a full understanding of water and what exactly it is and like how much it makes up everything. And he was kind of explaining, he was like, if you like had a plant and you took the water out of the plant, if you were able to somehow like get all the water out of the plant, it would just be a pile of like chlorophyll. And like, and then he was like, he was like talking about with like different things, like, and he was like saying that basically like everything is made up of it, like even, like solid objects. And I was really interested in that. I thought
it's a fascinating subject. We're learning.
Someone here said Astro Zombie Apocalypse here says lime green light is what George Washington witnessed. I am very curious about that. I want to know what the story behind that is. So I'm kind of throwing this up so that I can check that out later.
Very cool. Well, that's some of the info that I have is pretty much, well, we can get into that. First of all,
I would love to hear your story and the info that you have received from this because actually Clifford Mahooty, do you know who Clifford Mahooty is?
Oh yeah, he was my roommate at a Star Knowledge conference.
Yeah, we talked about this last time.
We go way back.
Yeah, well, I've known him for probably about 6 years now, but I see him at a lot of conferences and we usually hang out quite a bit when we meet. And in Sedona, in Sedona, we were both at a conference, and his talk, he started talking about the lime green balls of light, or he was saying a lime green ball of light comes to him all the time. And I was just like, my jaw was like to the floor his entire talk. And afterwards, we were all at a dinner at this house afterwards, and I came up to him, I was like, or actually we were sitting next to each other, like having dinner all night, and I was like, Clifford, what is the lime green ball of light? I'm like, it comes to you too, man? And he was like, yeah. And he started talking about it. He was like, I want you to know that he's like, the archangels are basically extraterrestrials, don't you? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, that's actually Archangel Raphael. And I was like, no way. And a lot of people actually told me that. But wow, my computer just is like about to die, so I really need to figure out the situation. So I'm gonna pause this real quick because I don't want this show to just end. So if you want to play your music like you were, like, sorry.
Yeah, I'll play some swimming bowl.
Yeah, okay.
This is 432, by the way. That shows you what the Tibetan monks know, huh? Sometimes at conferences, I start my talk with a singing bowl, and then I start going, we don't need no education.
That's amazing. I love that. I fixed the problem. Apparently the power strip was off, so turn the power strip on, so we're good now.
Cool. See how all's well that ends well.
Definitely.
But one thing I can tell you I learned is, just to jump into the deep end, these orbs of light from the NSA, I was brought into a meeting with some elitists, which is strange. But the leader of that group, A.R. Borden, he said, tell Michael what these orbs of light, what we know about them. And the guy said, well, we look at them as extraterrestrial drones or probes, but the intelligence behind the orb, he said, might not be from our timeline. It might be from our past or our future. But truly, what you're saying, like Archangel Raphael or any of the angelic realm, they're what's called ascended masters. And Drunvalo Melchizedek talks about igniting your Merkaba field, which is your subtle energy fields around your body. And there's certain visualizations and meditations you can do to spin. It takes the form of like a Star of David or a double tetrahedron. And you spin one clockwise and the bottom one counterclockwise. And if you do it properly, you could ignite your energetic field around you into a ball of plasma that becomes an interdimensional travel vehicle. So it makes sense to me that the orbs of light truly are Merkabas. But I had the pleasure too of meeting an Arcturian ambassador on this planet. By the way, he's a musician, and I learned so much about 432 from him. When I say he's a musician, he's like a master musician. He opened for the Rolling Stones for 60 shows, opened for Bon Jovi, David Bowie. But he said if it's one person and they ignite their subtle energy fields, that you'll have about 3 foot up, 3 foot down, 3 foot to the side. So if you're 6 foot, you got a 12-foot ball of light around you. But he said 3 of those, he said, it's always 3s, 6s, or 9s. And 3 of those orbs of light can come together, and in some process not known to us, they can create a large triangular craft. And he went into that there's a ball of material in between those 3 individuals, all creating Merkaba fields and creating tremendous amount of energy. He said, well, everything's made of light. And I said, yeah, I've heard that. Don't know if I truly get the aha reflex from it, but yeah. And he said, well, imagine material that was about the size of a basketball that was as close to becoming light as can be. He said it's screaming to become light. So these 3 individuals start in infinity loops, sending energy into that ball of material, willing it to flip over into light, pretty much creating a little miniature sun between them. And that creates then about a 50-foot ball of light. And then 3 of those with 3 individuals inside of each orb of light can come together and create a giant triangular craft. So 9 of them using the spiritual light technology can create an actual physical triangular craft that then thousands of them can use to come down and see what us crazy humans are up to.
I have seen this triangular craft before, and I actually, every time when I was younger, when I drew UFOs, I always drew a triangle craft with 3 lights on a light on each corner.
Right on.
That is so weird.
Imagine that.
Wow. That is, yeah. One time, I actually had a really interesting experience with that one time. I was at a youth group camp when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 13 or 14 in Tennessee. And I was just like, it was like a youth group kind of camp. And I was like, we were actually like doing work like, I was actually playing music for these nursing homes, and, we were like cleaning these nursing homes and stuff like during the day. And then we would go back to the camp at night. And one of the days when we were driving in between like the nursing home and the camp, I saw a triangular craft come down and start coming around this building. And I like told everyone, I was like, hey, you guys, look at that. And no one could see it. And I was like, what? You guys don't see that? It's right there. And it was like coming around the building, and I was like freaking out, and no one could see it. And I like remember like seeing them when I was even younger too. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think some people Well, first of all, you got to be tuned in. You gotta be present in the moment. And if you're thinking about if the moment isn't what you thought it would be, or you're thinking about the past, or you're thinking about the future, what you grocery shopping tomorrow, or you're stuck in your phone, man, the moment is the only thing that's real, and it's your only moment of power. So if you're not, and I think being a musician trains you to pay attention to the moment, because there's no other way to be a great musician other than you got to be able to tune into the moment and really tune into what your bandmates are doing, and all ride that same wave. So if you're not on that wave, you might not see it, like you're saying.
I think it's a lot to do with like perception too. My uncle, who taught me a lot, was like he was always an energy worker, and he's not well. My great grandma is Native American, Cherokee Native American, and he always was really into like studying like Native American shamanic modalities, and then he got into energy work when I was a kid, and he always told me that this story about these he said that when I'm not sure if it was the Aztecs or the Mayans, but back when the conquistadors first came, it was either the Aztecs or the Mayans, I'm not sure which. There was this sort of thing that happened to where like none of them had seen like a giant ship before, and apparently like when the ship started coming, only the shaman from the tribe could see the ship before anyone else, because none of their perceptions would allow them to see it because they hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. That's a great analogy. Then the shamans had to teach them, and then finally everyone could see it.
Yeah, and that always makes me wonder. It's like, what is going around us? Like, there could be ships coming down all the time, and like, you just don't see it because it's like, it's like your perception is just like blocking it out, and that's like kind of really trippy to think about.
I'll tell you what, with these orbs of light, it was like that to me. When the guy from Bigelow, he said these orbs of light are not what people typically think of as ships made out of metal and nuts and bolts or whatever. He said that they have more to do with portals and time travel. So I'm seeing these orbs of light, and I'm like, I don't know what it is. It could be a natural, Earth phenomenon or something, kind of like ball lightning, right? But they made themselves known that they were interacting. So what happened was with the History Channel, where it really started to change in my life was during that show, UFO Hunters. The producer brought a laptop to me, and he goes, we want to get your reaction. And he opened it up and played me footage from the UK. And it was exactly the same thing that I was filming over Lake Erie. And I didn't know it was happening anywhere else at this time. This is 2008. And I was like, wait a minute, this is exactly the same thing I'm filming over Lake Erie. And he started laughing. He goes, yeah, we know. That's why we're asking you. And that sparked my knowledge of, man, this is happening. Now I know it's happening worldwide. And but that was the beginning of, I would go down to the lake, almost like I got addicted to just watching sunsets. It got to the point it had nothing to do with UFOs. I lived really close, and I just, sometimes when you grow up right next to something you should be really appreciating, it's just, I didn't. I hate to say, but I didn't. But once I started going down there to film UFOs, I'd bring my little Sony Handycam, have it on a tripod, and just ready. If a ball of light went by, I was ready to film it. But I got to the point of, man, I love going down and watching the sunset. So if orbs of light showed up, that was even better. But I will tell you, one of these down there, this Sony Handycam, it had a digital 8 tape in there, and it would only film 1 hour on each tape, and I had 2 hours, and had crazy footage that night. But the camera was put away, and I'm sitting down there by myself, and one of these orbs of light that was about house sized showed up about 15 feet above my head. And man, I thought I was going to die. I seen flames coming off of it. It looked like a miniature sun. And really it was like fight or flight. I'm like, oh shit, I guess this is what it's going to feel like to get burned to death, you know? And all of a sudden it just hit me that there was no heat and there was no sound. And so it stayed for about 10 seconds, which seemed like forever. But that was one of my closest experiences with these orbs. But over Lake Erie. What's that?
How big did you say it was?
It was about house size. It was like maybe a small hot air balloon. It was big. But I can tell you, it was made of fire, man. It was like chariots of fire, right? From the Bible. There was flames.
That's what came to mind for me when you said that, was the chariots of fire they talk about in the Bible.
Yes, indeed. But you know what's crazy at the lake is the head of that remote viewing team and the reverse engineering, he said, you know what's underneath you in that area, Northeast Ohio, right near Cleveland, where I filmed all these objects. He said it's the world's oldest underground base and it's not ours. So I also filmed these orbs of light coming up out of the lake, you know, but when they come out, they're not like, it's a ball of light, but it's not like they're powered up. And they'll come up once they come up out of the lake, it'll like explode into a ball of light when it's about 5 foot above the lake. But I've filmed them going in and out of the lake, which is really exciting. But you know, I guess before too long, because I don't want to miss, I actually made notes. It's so odd for me. But you know, when Bigelow Aerospace contacted me, at this time, the UK Ministry of Defense had released a whole like 30,000 declassified UFO documents, but trying to find what you're looking for in 30,000 documents is trying to find a needle in a haystack. But he said, here, check out this file, you know? And by the way, if anyone wants to really dig into this, I have a website. It's called michaelleehill.net, and go to my blog. You'll see I just released an in-depth Lake Erie UFOs documentary, which I'm going to be uploading at the Fringe TV as well, but you can see it now. But when you go there and check it out online, it has the full story of what I found from the UK Ministry of Defense. But what really blew my mind is this backed up exactly what the Arcturian ambassador had told me about these orbs of light coming together and creating a craft. So this is from, getting old sucks. My readers. In the Ministry of Defense report, it says, amongst a lot of other things that are indeed noteworthy, that unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAPs, they found out if they called them UFOs, no one would pay attention. So they changed the name, and then people took it seriously. Isn't that just stupid? But anyhow, that UAPs exist, and it's indisputable, credited with the ability to hover, land, take off, accelerate to astonishing velocities, and vanish. They can reportedly alter their direction of flight suddenly, and clearly can exhibit aerodynamic characteristics well beyond those of any known aircraft or missile, either manned or unmanned. That's my dog, Beans. She's chiming in. The conditions for the initial formation and sustaining of what are apparently buoyant, charged masses of plasma, which can form, separate, merge, hover, climb, dive, and accelerate, are not completely understood. Dependent on a color's temperature and aerosol density, it may be seen visually either by its self-generated plasma color or by reflected light, or silhouetted by light blockage and background contrast. So what they're saying is the color you see, such as green, is dependent on its spin frequency, that it'll appear as a different color light depending on how fast it's being spun. But check this out. Occasionally, and perhaps exceptionally, it seems a field with undetermined characteristics can exist between certain charged buoyant objects in loose formation. The intervening space between them forms an area viewed as a shape, often triangular, from which the reflection of light does not occur. This is a key finding in the attribution of what has frequently been called black craft, often triangular and up to hundreds of feet in length. And this is the UK Ministry of Defense. So, I got more info on that, but man, that's a whole new ballgame. This is not me. This is the UK Ministry of Defense saying they know these orbs of light can come together and create a giant triangular craft. But Gary Hernandez is telling me what Bigelow Aerospace knows by owning the Skinwalker Ranch. And Skinwalker is a Native American Indian term anyhow. They would see these orbs of light come down and take on the form of a giant wolf or a giant deer. Hence, they would call them skinwalkers. But let's just back up then, man. These orbs of light is the form of the intelligence before it takes on biological or technological form within our reality. It can become anything from a giant UFO to a freaking giant wolf. This is a new ball game, man. It's going to be a lot for people to comprehend, but what's really strange is the Skinwalker Ranch. They also seen what they called poltergeist activity. And that was this, and the intelligence behind the phenomenon would show them, like, for instance, the scientists, which they seen these orbs of light come down and turn into giant wolves, by the way, the actual scientists for Bigelow Aerospace. Remember, this is the Pentagon group, They lived there. They took over the ranch. They put the best equipment that money could buy, which a lot of people know now by the Skinwalker Ranch.
Where is Skinwalker Ranch, by the way?
It's in Utah. And that's a fascinating story as well. But so the scientists are all living there, and they're investigating the phenomena, these orbs of light that would come down over the ranch. And since they're living there, they would have to go buy groceries, right? And they would come back to the ranch and they would load all the groceries into the cabinets, and into the refrigerator. And then one guy said, he walked into the next room and said, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to go, I forgot, I'm going to get a Pepsi." And he walked back into the other room, and everything they had put into the cabinets and cupboards and refrigerator were back in the grocery bags. They're like,
what the heck? That's so weird.
Yeah. And not only that, it said this intelligence was always like one step ahead. And whatever they're planning to do, if they planned on trying to check them out in one field, they'd show up in another field. But what was really interesting is these orbs of light came down over this one pasture. And so they knew it was a frequent thing. So they put up 3 poles with all kinds of equipment, nighttime, night shot technology, infrared, FLIR, radar. And so the cameras are running. All of a sudden, there's a flash of light, and then all the cameras go dark. Well, they were all in the line sight of each other, so there should have been something. But when they went, what they found was it's like something stopped time and took all the wires that were coming down off the equipment on those poles that went down into the ground 3 feet, and then went to the what would you call it? Ground zero at the ranch, the equipment room, and it was all gone. Even the masking tape that held the wires on was gone. And it happened in like a split millisecond. But all the cows that were in that pasture weren't affected. It's like nothing even happened. Over and over again, this intelligence would just show them. So that's why they called it poltergeist activity. But John Alexander, he's a politician, he's the guy that actually arranged for Robert Bigelow to get the contract from the Pentagon. he's got an interview online, and someone said, well, if you and Robert Bigelow came to the conclusion of what is the intelligence behind the phenomenon, he said, yes, we have. We've come to the conclusion we're up against the trickster, and that it's more complex than we could have ever imagined, and it's definitely in control. That's what, so now with the Pentagon thing, they're going to start revealing what they know to the public. They're going to reveal it's the trickster. That's their own words, and that's a Native American Indian terminology for the Anunnaki. And by the way, like I said, Bigelow contacted me and said, we know you're in contact with the real thing because we've been studying it. We call it the trickster. I'm like, hey, us Indians call it the trickster. So it all comes together.
Interesting.
But that's just the UK Ministry of Defense. The investigator, Gary Hernandez, the Bigelow investigator, said, you need to look into Hestdalen, Norway, because the same phenomenon of these orbs is showing up in the Hestdalen Valley, to the point that a university in Norway put a watching station 24/7 that had, again, the best technology that you could find. And they studied it for 20 years. And here's their findings. But isn't it strange? This almost sounds exactly like the UK Ministry of Defense. It says the phenomenon is identified as a bright flying object with special characteristics, making it unique to science. The phenomenon is more complex and diverse than expected, indicating more than one single kind of phenomenon. The phenomenon is sometimes made up of separate units that may depart and fly away. The speed varies from still to 8 kilometers per second. The phenomenon changes course in speeds indicating no mass by physical means. The phenomenon seems to be able to take on pieces of plasma or energy from the ground while passing by. The phenomenon seems to radiate energy due to the light and the frequency change of color. Many interesting spectra in the optical and radio frequency range has been detected, but more data is needed to draw a proper conclusion. These scientific data are quite sensational. We are dealing with a real existing phenomenon which can be observed even though this is difficult. For a layman, it would be convenient to brush the phenomenon off as atmospheric balls of light, which do exist in atmospheric phenomenon, and therefore moving back and forth on some atmospheric current. But this is not logical when we observe how the orbs move and the typical precise formations that they are taking. It's easy to see that it's not random, and therefore most likely is something controlled by some perhaps higher intelligence. What's interesting is, like I said, the History Channel showed me the evidence, the footage from the UK Ministry of Defense. And so I started a collection, through my network of people I was dealing with the NSA and whatnot. I kept getting these reports of these orbs of light over all these major cities, whether it was Texas or Mexico, and so I just started collecting, and I got to a point where I had about an hour of this footage, and I uploaded it to my YouTube channel, and I call it The Anunnaki Are Showing Up Worldwide. And that's over 1 million views now, which it's a little documentary that could. But the point is, when I'm sitting there looking at this footage back to back, it's apparent it's the same thing, man. They're flying in the same formations. They take on these triangular formations. Sometimes, a lot of the times, it takes on a double orbed look. There's like 2 orbs. That's one of my best footage, I think. It's got these 2 orbs and another 2 orbs fly right on top of it and kind of hang out for a minute and like do a little light dance. But it became apparent to me this is happening worldwide, but the media shows it as they have nothing to do with one another and they're unrelated to one another. When
A
you
lot
just
of
see,
people want to write it off as like ball lightning, but I know what I saw was not ball lightning. I mean, ball lightning doesn't come in that color, and yeah, I don't think that's what it was.
I think what's going to happen is they're going to show up over every major city simultaneously. Then what?
How big were the ones you said when you saw the three that were coming together? How big were those?
I've seen ones that are, the 12-foot size. I've seen ones that are about the size of a house. And I've seen triangular craft that they've become. But that's what's incredible to me is these orbs of light is what they look like before they take on physical form, either biological or technological. So it's the exact same thing, whether it's you see a single orb of light or you see a huge triangular craft. Matter of fact, it's funny because the Arcturian ambassador was saying, take one of the 50-foot orbs of light, and there's 3 seats for, ascended masters who can create Merkaba fields. And he said there's not too many humans that could sit in one of those seats right now, because if you're flying from here to Andromeda, one of them freaks out and goes, oh shit, we're going too fast. It's not going to end well for any of the 3. So you got to.
That sounds like fun to me. I would love to do that.
Right on. He said, actually, first of all, it forms some air within the sphere, so you can breathe, which is fun. And you're in such a state of high frequency that you're in bliss, sitting inside this orb. But say you travel to Mars, and then you reverse the process, and the field collapses around you, and now your feet are on Mars. You walk off to talk to some Martians, I guess. Oh, speaking of talking to Martians.
I need to get my baby Yoda here. I was still at home, and I got to set up a studio situation here, but I feel weird that he's not here with me.
Oh, you got to have baby Yoda there. We are enjoying Mandalorian so much, me and Sarah. We're about our 3rd way through it once again. Baby Yoda is so cute.
Baby Yoda is so cute. I can't even take anything else that's going on in the show seriously because I just freak out every time he comes on.
I don't know if you watched the making of it, but they said, these actors are really good actors, but they said if they're in a scene with Baby Yoda, you might as well just forget it. Baby Yoda is going to steal the scene, and it doesn't matter how great of an actor you are or whatever.
I actually had a friend in LA that was a part of a fight scene in Mandalorian, and he told me it's funny because it was a little before Star Trek, and I know because of where it was filmed that I was actually asked to be on that because they have code names for a lot of these shows, and if you're in a smaller scene, they have a code name for it. I guess I couldn't say the code name, but
was it Huckleberry?
No, but because of the location, they just kind of said the location. They said it was a secret project. I think I was invited to be a part of one of those scenes, and I didn't accept it because it was in Manhattan Beach, which was kind of far, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go all the way out there every day for a week. Man, if I would have known what show it was, probably would have done it, and then I could have been on Star Trek. And
how did you end up on Star Trek? We think that is the coolest thing. We get so excited when we see you.
It's interesting because I was actually on the Marvel series Runaways, and I was a magic school student for a few scenes, and this was a few months, maybe a couple months before, maybe 1 to 3 months before, and actually someone in the scene came up to me, or no, one of the, not the main, I don't think he was the main director, but maybe the assistant director, I'm not really sure, but he came up and in between takes, and he was like, hey, have you ever been into Star Trek and UFO stuff? And I was like, yeah, I'm actually a speaker in the UFO community. I love aliens and I love Star Trek. And he was like, Wow, that's interesting because I am actually doing something with filming Star Trek right now. And would you be interested in being on the
Oh,
show? And I was like, yes. So he was like, well, I really think you would be good for it. So he asked me my name and he like wrote down my name and number. And then pretty soon after, I ended up getting a call through Central Casting for it, which is weird because Central Casting doesn't really cast like that, those big roles that are kind of on that caliber. But they asked me to be on. So I think this guy like hit them up and had them get to me about it. So yeah, and I didn't know what it was. Like when I showed up for, they had a code name for it. So I didn't know what I was going to. And like the day I went to meet for a wardrobe, they were so secret about it. They didn't want anyone to know about it. I go to like CBS studios, and they still didn't tell me what I was a part of. And they're like, okay, we want you to wait over here for a couple of hours because there's some other people in wardrobe right now. And I was just meaning to, have them figure out what outfit I was going to wear, I guess. So they put me in this room with all the people that were, a part of the show. They were actually all on a lunch break, and they were filming something in a studio there that day. So I just started seeing and this was like, it was like a bunch of people with like prosthetics on and stuff, like over here. And then I was over here with crew people, and I'm looking around, and I'd seen some posters for Star Trek. And then I saw like, some of the main cast members, and I was like, I'm just sitting there with like some of the crew people, and I was like, is this Star Trek by any chance? And they're like, I was like, I know, I'm not supposed to know, but they're like, yeah, it is. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome.
The coolest.
Yeah, and I actually ended up filming for like a week. I know it was like, I was only in like 2 episodes, but it was like a week and a half of filming. And it was crazy because we actually had to go all the way over to Calabasas, the top of Malibu, like the highest you could possibly get up on the mountains there that you could drive to. Like I didn't even know it was possible to drive this high up on the mountain. And we had to like meet there like 5 a.m. every morning for a week. And it was kind of funny because the last day I filmed, they just kind of had me in a shot, just me and a few people there that day. But actually Dimensions of Disclosure was happening in Ventura, just a little down the 101, like like an hour north. So I actually ended up going to Dimensions of Disclosure right after one of the nights, and it was interesting. But it was really weird showing up on set at Star Trek because I had no idea what was going on. I didn't even really know what my character was or anything. And I get there the first morning, and it's just me and like 10 sets of twins. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, what's with all these twins? And I'm talking to them all, and no one knew what was going on. And I'm like, wait, am I supposed to have a twin? And actually some of the people there, they weren't even twins. Like they just looked alike, and they were casted to be like twins. They'd never met each other before.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm the only one there that didn't have a twin or a lookalike. I don't know if they found someone that looked like me and she canceled, or I don't know what happened, but literally the whole time we were filming, they like kept like different crew people would be like, hey, where's your twin? We're trying to place you. And I like started coming with this story. I was like, man, she died in this intergalactic battle, and I'm still grieving about it, and like I like made up this whole story. And they were just like, they thought I was serious. Like a lot of people thought I was like a main character or something, because they would like always like call me to like place me and everything. And it was so weird. But there was the scene where Patrick Stewart like gives like the speech to like all the aliens that I was a part of.
Data's race. How does it feel to be part of Data's race?
It was crazy. I was wondering why we were like gold all the time. I guess I didn't put 2 and 2 together. But when he did the one scene where he gave the speech to all of us about like saving the human race and all that, they actually put me right up front and center, like in front of all the other ones. And he did the whole, like for some of the takes, he actually did the whole speech like straight, like right in front of my face, like straight into my eyes. Like he did it like several times like that. He's like, you need to help us save the human race. And he's literally just talking like directly to me. And then like later on, they did some other takes too, and they didn't end up having it in there where it was like that. But that's what I filmed like several times that day. Yeah, it was
That's
weird.
awesome. Man, you gotta be proud. That's getting stuck into the Akash, man. You're forever Data's family.
Yeah, apparently I'm a human alien hybrid. So I hope that I can get. I'd love to get recasted as like a bigger role on a show like that, though. That was kind of like a side thing. Like I want to actually have like a speaking part in something. So
well, I hear there's definitely a Picard season 2 coming out. You never know, right? Evidently they like you, so yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
I was actually talking to one of the producers. It was this woman. I don't remember what her name was, but I don't know if there was like a few I think there was a few producers. I don't know if she was the main one or if she was like a co-producer. Mm-hmm. But one of the days I was telling her, I was like, yeah, like after I'm actually speaking on the UFO scene, and I'm actually going to go to a conference right after this. And she thought it was really cool, and she was going on about it. And I was like, is it okay if I say that I am a part of this show at conferences until it's released? And she was like, oh yeah, go ahead, please promote it, do that. Just don't like talk about, what happens in the scene or anything like that. So it's really cool. So they know what I do. I'm sure they probably looked into it.
How awesome. Just, if you do end up being part of season 2, I want to share something with you that's Star Trek related, and you can bring this. We call it Shatner. And when me and my friends, no matter what you're doing, if you scream out Shatner, you got to overact whatever you're doing. You just think it's funny.
That's cool. I like that.
You could even be like just drinking a milkshake, and it's like, Shatner, this is really good.
Wow. That's interesting. It was really interesting at Alien Con the year before I was there, or I filmed for this. There was actually a really old lady. She came up and she was like, she actually had like a walker, and she comes up to my booth. I had this like booth at Alien Con, or my shaman spears, and she started talking to me, and she's like, I was actually on Star Trek when I was around your age. It was like one of the first like seasons, like forever ago, and I was like, no way. Oh, wow. And she was like, yeah, and she was like going on. She said she was like a scientist from this one planet, and then she like, I forget what she said she did in it, but it was a pretty major role actually. And so she was just like talking about it for a long time, and she actually the next day she brought back. She was like talking to me about like what it used to be like to be in Hollywood in that time, and then the next day of the conference she like brought a bunch of like old like trinkets and stuff and like gave them to me, and
oh wow,
and like it was really weird because I didn't think about it, and I'm like thinking like, man, I hope I can be on a show like Star Trek someday.
Shazam.
Yeah, it's really weird.
That's awesome.
Oh, there was a question I wanted to ask you earlier about the triangular ships. Mm-hmm. You were saying that they would take the material, and when they came together with the orbs of light, did you say that they would have like a material that they would work with?
That was from the Arcturian ambassador. He said it was a basketball size of material. He actually told me what comprised that ball. I can't remember. I hate to say. It was like platinum and uranium, whatever. He said this material was the closest that material could come to becoming light again. It was like right on the verge of turning back into light. And by their process and sending energy into it, since it was so close, they could flip it with mental energy into becoming light again. And then that sphere could be expanded to like a 50-foot sphere that all three of them was in. Because if it's just one of them, it's just, if you're 6 foot, it's going to be a 12-foot sphere. If you're shorter, it'll be a little bit, but yeah, I'm so excited, by the way. He just offered, since no one's touring, right? And the his band is back on the scene and they're just kicking ass. But then COVID came, and so now he's not doing much. Released a new album, which is mind blowing. But he just released a bunch of it's a handwritten lyric sheet. I'm so excited to get it. He was a hero of mine growing up, just even a reason I wanted to be a musician. He's just so talented as a songwriter. I might as well just say his name is Dan Reed, and he was in a band called the Dan Reed Network. And man, that's one of the things that inspired me to be a musician. And then all of a sudden he just disappeared in like the early 90s. And here now, because now I've played the last 4 concerts he had in Cleveland. I played guitar for him, and he would come and stay at my house. And it was weird because a friend of mine knew I was a big fan of his. And when he came out of his spiritual seclusion, which I got to share this story with you, he said when he toured with the Rolling Stones, he said he had this illusion that when you had that kind of money and success, that all your problems went away. And he learned that's not true at all. He said it was like climbing to the top of a mountain, thinking there's going to be a guru there or something to teach you something. And he said he got there and there was no one. So it kind of blew his illusion. But simultaneously, he got the gig to go interview the Dalai Lama from, I think it was Spin Magazine. So he goes and meets the Dalai Lama, and he said he met love. Here's a guy that lost everything. His country was taken from him. His family was slaughtered. He said the guy still radiated nothing but love. And he said, well, here's someone I could learn from, So he took all that money he had made, because he had many platinum albums sold and touring with the Stones and whatnot. He dropped off the face of the planet and moved into a Tibetan monastery. And he said the only responsibility that they had was to go down to the river to wash their robes, and the monks would practice their Tibetan throat singing. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah,
It's really bizarre. But he said they loved to do it in the river because they could really project and really sing loud. He said one day one of the monks came up to him. He said, Dan, I heard a song on the Western radio. Will you teach it to me? And he's like, well, what song? And the monk went, boom, boom, ch, boom, boom, ch, boom, boom, ch. We Will Rock You. He's like, yeah, that's it. He said it was the most surreal moment of his life, teaching We Will Rock You to a Tibetan monk.
that's so amazing. Wow.
Yeah, he's an amazing
I
dude.
always had this very strong feeling that I want to go to Tibet. And I don't know, it's definitely a place that's been calling me my whole life.
Me too.
So I hope to go there sometime.
Have you ever seen 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt?
I have. I love that movie. I actually just
awesome.
rewatched it recently, like last month, I believe.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I was like, I'm actually like a huge rock climber, and I always wanted to climb Mount Everest, but I know that's kind of a crazy venture. But the Himalayas are totally calling me. Even if I just go part way up or like up to the base camp, that's enough for me. I would love to go check that out.
Have you ever read, I'm not going to be able to, James Redfield, I did pull it out. The Secret of Shambhala, I think it is. It's all about Tibet and what Shambhala is. You got to read it if you haven't.
I haven't read it. Are you talking about the connection with like the Tibetans and Inner Earth?
Oh, yeah.
They were like guardians of Inner Earth, right?
Yeah, well, it's weird because I partnered with David Sarita on a documentary series. It's actually like a mini series called From Here to Andromeda. And Robert Thurman, who is the Dalai Lama's right-hand person for translating Tibetan Buddhist texts into the Western culture, ended up being in our film. And he, for the first time, talks about the Dalai Lama and Buddhist view of extraterrestrial life. And it got into Shambhala. And he said, people think it's like a city or something. He goes, no, it's a whole continent. And it's not Shambhala, he said it is part of it is inside, but he said it's got like some type of holographic force field around it that you can't see it unless you're supposed to see it. Which the book by that The Secret of Shambhala is all about that. Like you'll be tested, and only those that can do it can make it there. But he said it will.
Like the Tuatha De Danann. That's what they are. I'm not sure if I said that right, but I heard that that's what they do too. Is they went to another, or they came out of a place like that, and then they went back to it.
Doesn't it sound like
the redhead gene comes from? Is the Tuatha De Danann?
Right on. What Black Panther, is that the name of the movie? The Marvel movie? It kind of reminded me of
Wakanda.
Yeah. This shielded holographically paradise where people have learned to get along,
Yeah.
I like when he's like, well, we don't do that here, the negativity.
Really? Oh, did you want to get into 432's frequency? We're already an hour in here. I mean, I can go for. I was worried about my laptop not being charged, but I got the charger working again. So I don't know if you wanted to keep going on with that.
You know what? I can just say I'm very, very excited that I just did the Human Origins conference, and Richard and Linda Smith have started a brand new channel on Roku called Fringe TV, and they offered me my own channel, and just with an open blanket, like do whatever you want to do, send us whatever you want to send us, whatever length, whatever. So yeah, thank you. I'm really excited about it because it's cool. But the first show on there is all on 432 and crop circles, and that's the first episode. But what I can tell you is, for sure, check it out on Roku. Any Roku device, just go to Fringe TV and then look for my channel. It's called Michael Lee Hill, Ancient Anunnaki Technology. Because technology, I know we think of it as like science, but I think there's spiritual technology too. It's a technology to be able to create a Merkaba, you know what I mean? And that's light technology. But anyhow, if you go to my YouTube channel, Michael Lee Hill, and I just uploaded that episode on my YouTube channel, and it's all on 432. And the biggest thing that I can say about 432 is here's the deal. E equals mc squared. It's all about that. E is energy, m is mass, c is the speed of light squared. But quantum physicists now know everything is quantum. Everything is both particle and wave. Well, that equation is only the particle part of the equation. It's right there, m equals mass. So where's the wave function? And what you find out, 432 hertz, 432 frequencies are the only frequencies that are truly harmonics of light. And, frequency births light. And so what this means is 432 squared, 432 times 432 is C, is the speed of light. Squared times mass equals energy. Well, in the way that the Anunnaki have guided me to make, these 432 energy disks, well, mass is photons, photonic light. M is everything that exists from the atom to a galaxy, right? Is M. But they just led me to this information, and it's just blown my mind, because how does 432 fit in with that? Because the Anunnaki had told me it's totally related. Well, it's just been revealed that sound can create negative mass. Scientifically, it creates mass that comes up. And not only that, when the frequency creates a field, it will create anti-gravity effects, I guess would be. So now it's starting to make sense of Tibetan monks that knew very specific frequencies to play in combination that would make things levitate. And, even with the pyramid, levitate a huge stone into place. But the deal is, this is the NASA, when they looked into my work, that is the energy level of photonic energy within a droplet of water. It looks like a little miniature supernova. I don't have the before picture. This is the after. The before picture looks like a little pinprick of light. It's barely even there. And so I asked the biophysicist, I said, well, wait a minute. If there's barely no photonic energy within the droplet of water, but then you set that water on a 432 disk for, 7 seconds is all it takes. But the longer you keep the water on the disk, it focuses the light within the droplet of water into a laser beam of energy. That was the scientist's own words. So I started thinking, well, what is this truly? Because, yeah, it will restructure water, but truly this is galactic 369 energy. By the way, 369 implies a Fibonacci sequence, the only Fibonacci sequence that lands on 432, which is interesting. But I guess my whole point of this is galactic light energy coming from another dimension. Because I asked the scientists from NASA, I said, well, listen, if there's no energy and then there's energy, where's this energy coming from? Is it coming from our solar system? Is it coming from our sun, our planets? She said, no, it's coming from another dimension. This is energy that has not taken form yet. And just by working with the frequency of 432, it's like you get an extra little pool of energy that can become physical. It's like a quantum reality accelerator. It's pretty amazing. So using 432, you can tap into galactic divine energy for manifestation, for, if you meditate and you have, a 432 bowl, your thoughts are going to go to Creator with great enthusiasm. That's what I was told by Chief Blue Star Eagle, that once you start to understand these scientific, it is science, but so 432 is a game changer. Imagine once you restructure water, which even NASA said, a 432 disk. By the way, anyone that wants one of these, again, visit my website, michaelleehill.net. I have made them available to the world, and they will restructure water in a way that the scientists from NASA said they've never seen it before. So there's a lot of ways to restructure water, whether it's, you can even give water a blessing, or you can spin it. You can send it through high magnetic fields. By the way, when I met the Anunnaki, they told me I was once known as the water bearer. I was like, what the hell is that? Now I can look someone in the eye and go, you know what? I am the water bearer. Would you like to see the data? No pun intended.
Are you why can't I think of it right now? Crap. I can't think of it. The zodiac sign. What's it?
Aquarius.
Yeah, Aquarius. Duh. I don't know why I couldn't think of it.
Well, Aquarius is Inky. Inky back in Sumer was always depicted with either water erupting out of his shoulders, or fish that were coming out, or he had buckets of water or pitchers of water. People were like, why the Anunnaki? Why did they have man purses? Like, they're not man purses. It's a carrier of water, showing you're dealing with the water bearer side of the family.
That's what the bags are?
Yes.
I'm always wondering, like, what's with the bags? What's with the bags?
It's living water. He's the water bearer.
They were like TMT devices, and I'm like, I don't know about that.
It's just an indicator of what side of the family that you're dealing with, and the water bearer side of the family, which is Inky Aquarius, the man holding the buckets of water. Matter of fact, when I met the Anunnaki, they said their succession of kingship and how they relate to mankind was all based on the precessional cycle. Exiting the age of Aquarius, let me digress. Exiting the age of Pisces and entering the age of Aquarius. And they said, so this is really interesting because when I did the interview with Richard Hoagland, which he's the one that actually set up for NASA to look into my work. And he said NASA knows that 432, that grid, because, that's just an A node. If you go to B, it's not 432, obviously. But he said that NASA knows that the numbers I brought to the table are right on the money because they know that the 432 grid is encoded into the precessional cycle, which blew my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, how can that be? But check this out. The precessional cycle is 25,920 year cycle divided by 60, because they give us the system of 60. Anyhow, divide 25,000 by 920 divided by 60 is 432. Interesting right off the bat. Divided by 12, because they gave us the idea of dividing or multiplying whole units by 12, whether there's 12 inches in a foot, or the 12 apostles, or 12, 12, 12.
Zodiac.
12 hours in a day, right? And we talked about, well, look at how many seconds is in 12 hours. It's 43,200, another 432.
Oh, wow.
But our time system is actually based on 432, which that, again, all 432 base frequencies, just because you got a middle note on your piano tuned properly to A equaling 432 hertz, not 440, but there's still a lower A note on the piano. And a simple Pythagoras came up and said, just divide whatever frequency you're on divided by 2. So the proper frequency of the lower A note on a piano would be 216 hertz. And then if you divide that by 2 for your next lower octave of A would be 108. 108 is very interesting because Tibetan monks have 108 prayer beads on their prayer bracelets, and they'll repeat mantras for 108 times. And then you go down, it's 54, and then 27 is the lower octaves. Well, using a scientific cymatic device, if you pump 27 hertz through a cymoscope, a scientific device that makes frequency visible, it forms a perfect 7-pointed star. So that tells you right away that 7-pointed stars are forever entwined into the 432 subject. But again, 432 divided by 2 is 216. And why this is important, divide that 25,920 by 12, and you get 2160, or 216, 1 octave below 432. If the sky is divided into 12 constellations, 25,920 divided by 12 is 2,160. They're all 432 based octave numbers that are encoded into the time cycle, which, man, that's 25,920 year cycle. Who the hell was around to even know that? And that really started to toast my noodle too. I'm like, well, for those that don't know what the precessional cycle is, it's created by the wobble of the planet Earth. And the Earth is off axis, tilted a little bit. And if you just took a straight arrow out into outer space, as it spins, it actually makes a circle. And if you were sitting inside that circle as the precessional cycle happened, those are the star constellations that are closest to seeing outside the precessional cycle.
The North Star changes like every so many thousand years, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
North Stars that it kind of rotates between.
It's mind-blowing to me because, the Earth is off axis, and the cycle of the precessional cycle encodes 432 numbers. I'm like, how can that be? Did someone control the spin of this planet? And I'm thinking it's not, because it's truly light. 432 times 432 becomes the speed of light in the E equals mc squared.
No way.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? But when we're saying this whole reality that we're experiencing is a 432 based light creation, it's not just woo woo. It's if you look at the moon, it's 1,080 miles across. If you look at the sun, it's 8,640 miles across. 8,640, 864 is 432 times 2. 1,080 miles across for the moon is 2 octaves below 432. They're both perfect octaves, the moon and the sun. And that's what creates a full totality eclipse. If they weren't exact octaves, we would not get a full totality eclipse, which there's another one coming up in 2024, by the way, and it's going to be huge for mankind. It's a turning point. But
I found out about that the other day. I didn't think another one would happen so soon, and that's going through the Midwest area, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. It comes right up to the Great Lakes, and it's gonna. I'm in the process of revealing the Hall of Records ancient mound site. It takes over a mile to walk around it, and there's already artifacts that have been removed from that mound by the Smithsonian that tie it to ancient Sumer, and that is the Morning Star symbol. But in 2024, that eclipse, the path of that eclipse, that mound site is going to be in full totality, which means it'll become night. And
is
that's
that location a secret right now?
Is it what?
Is the location a secret right now?
Well, no one knows about it, but I just brought Chief Gold and Light Eagle there, and I brought Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull there, and that was for the equinox of 2020. And it was interesting because I didn't even know this was happening, but during the Crystal Skull is supposed to unlock ancient history, right? Ancient knowledge. And I had done a Star Knowledge conference in Estes Park, and the Canadian Public Corporation was there, and they were filming a show, and we were filmed for it. So I didn't know, as we were doing ceremony at this unknown mound builder site, it's in East Lake, Ohio. It doesn't have to be secret. It's I got a call from the guy from the Smithsonian. It said, "I seen you track the mound builders in the East Lake, but are you aware that there's still an intact ancient earthwork?" I'm like, no, I was raised in that hometown. No one knows. They think it's a garbage dump, by the way. People there's like, nah, I talked to the mayor, and he's like, "Oh, I thought that was a garbage dump." Yeah, that's nice. But anyhow, it's in a state park that's called Chagrin River Park. And that's where it's at. But the guy from the Smithsonian said, go to the East Lake Indian Museum, and you'll find the artifacts that tie it to ancient Sumer and the Anunnaki.
Where is East Lake? Is that northwestern Ohio?
It's if you take Cleveland, which is right on Lake Erie, and then the next bordering city is called Euclid, and the next one is East Lake. So it's about 20 minutes suburb, but this is where I filmed all the Lake Erie UFOs. This is where the head of the NSA remote viewer reverse engineering said it's the location of the world's largest underground base. It's also the story of the Peacemaker, which was a previous incarnation. By the way, I have this on film. The Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull recognized me as the Peacemaker and told me it's time to step up and step into your I am. But the story of the Peacemaker is the story of the unification of the Iroquois tribe of Indians, which it's called Haudenosaunee is our term for it. Iroquois is almost kind of like a derogatory slang term. But for the longest time, those 5 tribes of the Iroquois were at war with one another. It was brother against brother, tribe against tribe. But not only that, darkness had set in internally with those warriors and kept these wars going on from generation to generation to generation. But the peacemaker showed up from the Canada side and said that he crossed Lake Michigan in his magical white stone canoe. Isn't that funny? But anyhow, he went and was able to heal Hiawatha. People know the name Hiawatha, but they don't know it's related to the Peacemaker story. The Peacemaker united all those tribes, which was not easy, because in the story, Hiawatha had united the chiefs of the Iroquois to try to take out this one chief that wasn't going along with the plan to allow European incomers and form America. And Hiawatha united those chiefs to go after her. This is White Buffalo Calf Woman, by the way. I know in the story people know of this. That shaman has been turned into a male war chief that had snakes coming out of his hair. It wouldn't have been a male. Females held the highest level of authority in this culture. And so think of a female chief who had snakes. They perceive snakes as Medusa, that mythology of it. So anyhow, they go after her with the arrow, and they got their asses handed to them. They went back, and not only did they go after her with the arrow, but they left their families alone in their villages. So when the warriors went back, the European incoming slaughtered their families because they knew it'd break the will of the warriors. So now imagine the Peacemaker showing up, and he heals Hiawatha's heart and shows him, it's called the Great Law of Peace. And Hiawatha's like, can you teach what you taught me to the other chiefs? Well, they wanted no part of it. They're like, well, we're going to go back to her and get our asses handed to us again? I don't think so. And, as the story goes, the chiefs are like, well, if you are this holy man, how about if we try to kill you? And if you survive, then we'll listen to what you got to say. And he's like, sure. So they did try to kill him. I'll just say it didn't work. And obviously there's a lot more to that story. But so he united those chiefs to go. By the way, East Lake, Ohio is the location of this ancient earthwork mound site. And it's the location of the Peacemaker, Hiawatha / White Buffalo Calf Woman. After the first attempt to take her out, she went to Florida. She got the hell out of Dodge and said, because Florida is where our bloodline, the Atlanteans, actually came to from the Mayan culture. This has just been proven recently. There's a Mayan step pyramid they found in Crystal River. They knew that there was a Mayan. Yeah, they flew a drone with ground penetrating radar and they found it. It's there. But so that was home base anyhow. So White Buffalo Calf Woman went from East Lake all the way down to Miami. And that bloodline and that part of the family actually became the Seminole tribe of Indians. But you can imagine there was no horses here at that time. Can you imagine the Peacemaker taking these chiefs from East Lake, Ohio, right on Lake Erie, to Miami on foot? They had never seen alligators. They had never seen snakes and swamps. It was treacherous to meet her, And so it's really interesting that when they got there, first of all, it was the Peacemaker's purity of his song that made her listen. But when he spoke to her, the sun disappeared from the sky. It was a full totality eclipse. And they didn't know that. Obviously, the Mayans knew that the Mayan calendar tracked these things, and I can see the peacemaker and all the chiefs going, why don't we just go today? And the peacemaker going, no, it's got to be tomorrow. That's when the eclipse would happen. But because the sun disappeared from the sky, then they all listened, and the fire, think of the flood. The deluge was the purification method back then. If we didn't make it now, it would have been purification by fire. And white buffalo calf woman was given the divine fire. She held the gavel. You know what I mean? Like, we'll give you, if we don't get it right, then you can bring your solar flare and just wipe this planet clean if you don't think, because I'll tell you what, I know her personally, and she's still very upset with humanity of how we treat Mother Earth. This is White Buffalo Calf Woman is the incarnation of Gaia, and she's not real happy with how we've treated the water and the air and whatnot. But she gave us another chance, and but we need to get our shit together and start realizing this planet is beautiful, and we need to take much better care of it. But that's the story in essence of Peacemaker brought unity, and from that point forward, these tribes that were at war for thousands of years formed a confederation, and they lived in peace and harmony ever since. That was about 700 years ago. When the Iroquois still have the oldest functioning democracy on this planet, and a chief of the Seneca, which is Iroquois, his name was Chief Cornplanter, and he was another one of my incarnations. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin met with him to learn this form of government of we the people. This isn't how things were done.
I read about that in the book My Dear Hamilton. It's a story from the point of view of Alexander Hamilton's wife, and it goes really into detail about it. I learned about that recently.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, this is
Yes,
so
indeed.
interesting.
That's I've actually got my what's that called, a Census Bureau, that document of my great grandmother and grandfather, and they were from the Pennsylvania Chief Cornplanter. That's my heritage, and I know because of the Anunnaki connection. I've been there. I've stayed on the land. I'm really pissed about it because George Washington was so enamored with what he learned from Chief Cornplanter and what became America, land of the plumed serpents, by the way, feathered serpent.
Wait, is that what America means?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah, land of the feathered serpent or the plumed serpent is what America means.
What language is that in?
You know what? I don't know. I can find that out. That's a very good question. My brain ain't working real well right now. But what had happened was George Washington was so enamored with the wisdom, that became America and what he learned from Chief Cornplanter, that your listeners can look into the Cornplanter Tract. It was the first treaty ever signed between the United States and the Native American First Nations. And the Cornplanter Tract said that the land in Salamanca, New York would forever remain the Seneca, which it still is. Niagara Falls, that whole Seneca land, when you drive there, you pass through a sign that says you've now left the United States. You're under Seneca law, and there's a toll that's being paid on your behalf by the United States to travel through that land. But also there was 1,500 acres in Pennsylvania from my side of the family. And that those 1,500 acres forevermore would be Chief Cornplanter's and his heirs, and it was never to be trespassed upon by the United States of America, that anyone that lived there would not pay any taxes, would not be under American rule. And so once that was set up, and again, just look into the Corn Planter Tract and you'll find what I'm talking about. And as I said, I am the treaty, which, by the way, man, I see these people on TV talking about, oh, we got to uphold the Constitution. Look into the Constitution. It says the highest law of the land is the treaty, and that it supersedes all courts, and it is not to be severed. It's the highest law of the Constitution is the treaty, in the own words of the Constitution. So once the treaty was signed by George Washington, it's his name on it, about 50 years later, the incoming European genocide crew said, you know, you're going to have to start paying taxes on this land. And it went to the United States Supreme Court at that time, and they backed Chief Corn Planter. They said, no, this is the Corn Planter Tract signed by our forefathers, and this is the highest law of the land. So, but now let's fast forward to the 1960s. Kinzua Dam, there was 600 Seneca still living on that Pennsylvania land of Chief Corn Planter. And as I said, the Corn Planter Tract says that land is forever more Chief Corn Planter and his heirs. I am an heir. It's a little bit more than an heir. It was another incarnation of mine. But in the 1960s, at gunpoint, they forced those 600 Seneca to relocate to the New York land of the Seneca. And it was for them to make a dam, and they flooded our sacred lands. There's still houses and trucks that are under that water reservoir. So obviously, you know what the Anunnaki told me? Moving into the future, into becoming a galactic society, this will not happen through Biden or Putin or Trump. It will happen through the Native American Indian First Nation voice, because we are the lost tribe of Israel. We are the Anunnaki human hybrids that have suffered more so at the hands of this evil machine. The largest genocide on this planet was committed against us. Some people say as much 80 to 100 million slaughtered. So the Native American Indians are also the ones that truly have the information to live in peace and harmony with this planet. And the prophecy of the Native American Indians is called the Rainbow Warrior Prophecy. Your listeners can look into that, or the Whirling Rainbow Prophecy. And these are the people that would surface, and because of their own deeds, it would be apparent that they were interested more in the welfare of humanity than their own wallets and their own greed and money. And these people would surface and lead mankind into the next golden age. And so I can tell you, with Chief Golden Light Eagle and the Star Knowledge family, which I was going to say, what happened is that being filmed for the Canadian thing, I didn't know. Our teachings have went public in Canada at the University of Ottawa. They're teaching Star Knowledge. And the show that we filmed is called, it's funny because I became friends with the head producer, and he said, well, what do you think we should call this? I'm like, well, you came to a Star Knowledge conference. I would say Star Knowledge, you know? So they named it the Star Knowledge Symposium. And on equinoxes and solstices in Canada, you can go, and there's big festivals going to happen once COVID is lifted, and you'll be able to learn from Native American First Nation, because, you know, back then there was no American Canada. It was just we relocated all around the Great Lakes. So that's live, man. Go and type in University of Ottawa and Star Knowledge, and you'll find it's live. So
I
when
definitely
you,
want to check that out. That sounds really interesting.
yeah, it's really cool. And I gotta, you know what? I can't share it publicly, but I do have the show. Um, so lots of interesting things on the horizon, and I do want our 1,500 acres back in Pennsylvania. People are like, how's that going to happen? It's like, you know what? There's a lot of American citizens living in Salamanca, New York, Niagara Falls, right? They don't pay taxes. They're not part of the United States. And obviously we can live in peace and harmony with one another, you know? So some interesting things on the horizon, but the whole thing with, the Anunnaki going, you were once known as the water bearer, then guiding me into the 432 subject. And guess what? The 432 tech does resurrect and revitalize dead water bearer. Now I'm like, oh, now I understand. But yeah, and the whole point of all of that is once you restructure water using that technology, watch what happens when you use it for agriculture or even your own garden. It creates crops that grow about twice as fast, and they're immune to drought, and the nutritional value of each bite is more than doubled. It's nature's GMO. We don't need GMO. We need ancient technology, wisdom, which is returning. And 432 is a part of that.
Amazing. This has been a very fascinating interview. I'm really enjoyed this a lot. I love having you on. If you can think of another topic you want to come on again soon, that'd be cool. I'm down.
Right on.
I wanted to say, when you were telling your whole story, you know how I mentioned that author Joan Grant at the beginning of this interview? One of her past lives, so she has very interesting past lives in Egypt that she wrote entire books about. And they're like really fascinating stories. I mean, it's not just like, regular, it's really an amazing story. Like each of the books, I couldn't even recommend one more than the other, but because they're just all so important in their own way. But one of them is called Scarlet Feather. And it's called Scarlet Feather, and that's her Native American past life. And it was actually a past life about kind of bringing together these tribes and uniting them. And actually, it was a lot of her past lives were about uniting certain, like there was one where she was involved in uniting Egypt at one point in history. So I highly recommend, I actually listened to them on Audible. I've read some of them, but I actually like to listen to them on Audible because I don't know, the person that reads them, she just has a really fascinating way of kind of telling it. So I highly recommend you either read or listen to Scarlet Feather by Joan Grant, because I think a lot you would like
click
with a lot of it. Yeah, definitely.
Right on.
That is a very fascinating story. I definitely want to look into these things, and I'm definitely interested in checking that place out in Ohio too. I go there quite a bit, so
I'm going to be going in the very near future and spending 3 weeks there. So I'm going to be doing a lot of exploring and videoing, and so it's really exciting. By the way, the Peacemaker story, Robbie Robertson from the band, famous musician, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member. The night they tore old Dixie down, that's the band. Yeah.
What band again? I'm sorry.
The band.
It's just called The Band?
The band. And
oh yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, what the head guy of that, his name is Robbie Robertson, and he's Native American Indian heritage, and he released a graphic novel just recently. I think it was 2016 or 2017. It's called Hiawatha and the Peacemaker, and in the back of it, there's a CD that comes with it, and he wrote a song called The Peacemaker, and it's available on YouTube if you type in Peacemaker, and Robbie Robertson. You'll find it. But what I want to tell you is Robbie Robertson also was part of the same artist that did the graphic novel, became part of a mini series called Native America. And it's available on Amazon Prime. And it's like 4 2-hour episodes on all of the history that not been really released yet.
What's it called?
Native America.
On Amazon Prime.
Yeah, and it's narrated by Robbie Robertson. It's so good. But the Peacemaker Hiawatha story went over in great detail in that series as well. So definitely check it out.
Definitely, I will do that. I'm definitely interested in that. Well, I need to get ready to wrap this up here.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I love talking with you. I really enjoy these interviews. It's so fascinating. And I definitely feel like, you're totally right about the Native Americans taking on the torch and really uniting the world. I see that happening, at least, like the descendants of like the race, and even if they're like intermixed with different other races, and the rainbow warriors that you were talking about. I really feel that's where it's heading. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, to them the rainbow just means cleared chakras. That when your chakras are clean and balanced, they emit light, and it's the colors of the rainbow, from red in the root to purple in the crown. So the grandmother told me, she said, to those of us that have the gift of sight, you've become the whirling rainbow. And that's why the prophecy of the rainbow warriors, I think it's a great thing, because anyone can become rainbow. It doesn't matter whether you're male, female, black, white, red, yellow. It doesn't matter. Everyone can become rainbow, and everyone's path to become rainbow is personal, and but we can all get there. I like to say that's the mission that we're on here, is to create human rainbows.
I love that. So is there any final words you have here to wrap this up? I know, like I have on the ticker down here your website, so everyone make sure you go there and check out his Anunnaki technology.
Oh, awesome.
I don't have it with me right now, but I love his 432 Hz frequency plate. I take it everywhere with me. So
yeah, just remember the word abracapocus. That's all.
What does that mean?
It's an inside joke, but it's actually when Bugs Bunny, remember, he met the vampire, and he figured out if he said abracadabra, he turned into a bat, and if he said hocus pocus, he turned back into a vampire. So Bugs Bunny is like, the vampire is going to kill him. He's got a big rock above his head. He's like, hocus pocus, and turned into a bat. He gets squashed by the big stone, and then the vampire like, abracadabra, and he like turns back in. He's all wobbly because he's just got the shit kicked out of him. But sooner or later, Bugs Bunny is like, abracapocus, and it's like a bat with this big human head of a vampire on it. So it's my favorite word. I use it a lot for manifestation.
Abracapocus.
Abracapocus.
Awesome. Well, it was so
Sharing
great to have you on here. I really, I really enjoy having you on here. So if you ever have another topic, want to share again too.
There's much more.
Yeah, definitely.
And congratulations.
I always resonate with, so I really enjoy these.
Congratulations on your new set. It looks awesome.
Thank you. It's still coming together, but I'm not gonna lie, I feel pretty awesome in it. Like I'm like, okay, I just need some controllers. I don't feel like I'm like honestly, like when you talked about, like turning into the orbs and like, becoming a spaceship with other people, I'm like, man, I want to do that so bad. I know I have a connection with Andromeda, and like they were saying, it's actually a psychic reader person at a conference came up to me and told me this one time, and I was asking her about the orbs, and she said that they were like these beings from Andromeda, that would come in orbs. So I was like, okay, like, I'm like, she was like, do you like to go very fast? And I was like, I love going fast. It's like my favorite thing ever. So, oh man, that sounds so fun, turning into an orb. And yeah,
Zoom it off.
maybe I'm already doing it in my dream state or something, but I want to figure out how to manifest doing that. That sounds really cool. I hope I can make that happen. But all right,
I'm sure
so
you're already doing it.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm feeling that'd be very cool. So thanks for coming on here, and thanks everyone for joining tonight. My next episode is going to be with Mateus. We're going to be talking about on Tuesday at 5 p.m. We're going to be talking about his gold-backed cryptocurrency and some things he has planned for the future, a conference that I'm going to be a part of coming up, and and that's the Seventh Seal Summit. It's actually this is a virtual one, but then there will be a live one in Sedona soon. But yeah, we're gonna have an interesting discussion next Tuesday. Make sure you tune in at 5 p.m. Pacific. So it's great to have you all here. And until next time on Apollo's Odyssey, over and out.
Peace.
Peace.